What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Carrie.
What's up?
We expect to have Micah along sometime in the next handful of minutes, but we could set the table for you guys in the meantime. It was a bloodletting in the video game industry this past week. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the Suicide Squad game as it releases into early access, because I think this game might be an even bigger train wreck than even we thought it was going to be, and a whole lot more as we roll on through the show. We'll do our normal housekeeping as we do up front. Don't forget to join other listeners of the show by joining our Discord, which you can find at densepixels.com/fans. You can subscribe to the show either on YouTube at youtube.com/densepixels or on podcast feeds that you can take your preference or both. Do both. Maybe just do, you don't have to choose. You can do one or the other. Of course, all the TNP Studio shows are found on fine podcast feeds around the world. You can also sign up to be a premium TNP Studios member by going to densepixels.com/premium for just $5 a month or $50 for the full year to get access to the premium slate of content. And of course, you can help support the show on Amazon by using our Amazon link, which is densepixels.com/Amazon. So I mean, let's kind of go bottom up, because there's just a ton of layoffs in the industry this week, but none more than what we're going to build up to here. Riot Games laid off 530 employees, and weirdly, they might have the most acceptable reason for layoffs, because they basically shut down their publishing arm that they had, because it just wasn't very successful. Like a lot of the games that, pretty much every game that publishing arm came out with that got published, which were all games that were based in the League universe but just had different spin-offs, were all fine and didn't sell incredibly well. So you can understand why that happened. And they're also doing, I think, a decent job of taking care of the folks that were laid off. They're getting 6 months severance minimum, a cash bonus equal to 100% of their individual 2023 performance bonus. They're going to receive healthcare while their severance is being paid out, which not a lot of other jobs do, and other other amenities going along with that. So again,
career support, all sorts of access, visa support for the international folks.
Yep.
All that sort of shit. So honestly, as far as these major layoffs across companies go, Riot, surprisingly, doing a great job.
Yeah,
given that they've historically done a shit job otherwise.
Yeah, as best you can. Black Forest Games, which is an Embracer studio, which made the Destroy All Humans remakes, and they're currently working on a Ninja Turtle game. They laid off half of their staff. People Can Fly, who did Outriders and Bulletstorm, they laid off several people at their place. We just found out today that Eidos Montreal, another Embracer studio, laid off nearly 100 people. And they were working on a new Deus Ex game, and that game has now been canceled as the remaining talent moves on to a brand new project, basically. So again, not a surprise.
It really begs the question of why the fuck was Embracer buying up all these studios if all they were going to do was lay a ton of people off?
Because because what's funny is that if you look at, hold that question for a little bit from now, but what's funny is that if you look at the guy that owns Embracer, the dude's a really collects a lot of shit, and it almost feels like he was collecting game studios for his company, which is kind of gross when you really boil it down. But the big news that caught really everybody off guard is that Microsoft is laying off 1,900 people across the Xbox and Activision divisions within the company. And the thing is, we don't necessarily know the full extent of that yet. So whenever one big company acquires another big company, you should expect to see some reduction.
There's going to be layoffs.
Because there's going to be redundancies. Because there's a lot of people that did the same job at Blizzard that Microsoft already has a person in place for. And so do you need to double up on that? Probably not. They're just kind of doing the same thing. So you can expect that. 1,900 layoffs is not just covering redundancies.
No, that's going well beyond that. And of course, this includes not just stuff at Activision Blizzard and Xbox, but this is also hitting ZeniMax, who had nothing to fucking do with this.
Yeah.
Like, which really goes to show that, like, this, it absolutely goes beyond them just being like, oh, we're eliminating redundancy after this merger. Like, you know.
And what's funny is that Mike Ibarra, who's the head of Blizzard, who actually worked at Microsoft right before he rejoined Blizzard when he became their CEO, he left, I think, on his own. I don't think he was laid off. I think he made the decision to leave, essentially. And so we don't know who's running Blizzard right now at Microsoft. And basically, and again, I'm a little sympathetic to this part of the process, because obviously, like, laying off 50 people, 100 people is a logistical nightmare. I could not even possibly imagine how laying off, how big of a nightmare logistically laying off 1,900 people is. But we're still at the point where a lot of people have seen, like, hey, layoffs are coming, but they haven't been announced widespread yet, to the point where, like, Jason Schreier said that there were people inside of Microsoft that were asking him if he knew who, like the folks that were being laid off, because to see if he had any insider knowledge, because they have heard nothing one way or the other from Microsoft, which to me is unfathomable. Like, it's one of those things, like, I get, like, if you can't announce the full list right away, like, you probably have to do them in waves. I get it. But man, just a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt probably among the folks that are in the gaming division, especially the folks that are recently acquired. And Carrie, that kind of takes it back to your question that you asked just a couple of minutes ago. What's the point of spending all this money to acquire the studios if you're then just going to turn around and lay off the personnel that made the studios something that's worth acquiring in your eyes? That's how I see it.
Yep, there's certainly that, and it's, it, if doing well isn't good enough, then what is? If doing good work and putting in, extra hours and going through crunch on games and all of this, if that's not enough to save you from layoffs, then nothing is. I've been seeing all sorts of stupid ass privileged white man takes on Twitter for the last couple weeks of dudes being like, oh, well, if you don't want to risk getting laid off, you have to go above and beyond and you have to make yourself indispensable. It's like, that's not how it fucking works, dude. It's not how the real world works. Might work in your mind that that's how that's supposed to happen. And maybe, that is how that's supposed to work. Where if you go the extra mile, if you do all the extra shit for your company, if you show how loyal you are to the upper management at a company, then they won't lay you off. Dude, you're nothing but a line on a sheet of paper to the people crunching these numbers. And that goes across all industries. It's not just the game industry. It's the tech industry. It's every industry. Communications, marketing, it doesn't fucking matter. At the end of the day, companies aren't your friend, and this goes when you're, looking at companies as a consumer as well. I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, I can't believe Microsoft would do this of all companies, because they're one of the good ones. Like, no, they're fucking not. They're another corporate entity at the end of the day that only cares about their bottom line. And, it sucks.
Well, and again, like corporate, like especially publicly traded corporations are defined. Yeah. Success is defined by your market cap. And when Microsoft brought in Activision Blizzard, they actually grew. So they're Microsoft's worth over $3 trillion. They're now like the number one company in terms of market cap. They actually exceeded Apple. And who really loves when people lose their jobs? Stockholders fucking love it. You know why? Because you're cutting costs, which is going to increase profits. And nothing the stockholder loves more than a company that's being profitable. And that's why you do this shit. The biggest thing that I have a problem with, I mean, obviously the biggest thing I have a problem with is the fact that they're fucking laying off 1,900 people just 3 months after, finishing this deal to acquire Activision Blizzard. My biggest problem is this this runs counter to like the narrative that Microsoft as a company is putting out there. Like Phil Spencer's been doing interviews. Phil Spencer's been talking about, you know, what Microsoft's been doing. He's talking about the success of Game Pass. He's talking about the, you know, the billions of dollars Microsoft is raking in every year off of just Game Pass subscriptions. So like, and I get, and again, like I get you have to be rosy and put on a good face, but like, that's what makes news like this look shitty. Like if Phil Spencer's like, yeah, you know, Game Pass is doing well, but we're struggling in these areas and blah 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 blah. Like then you might be able to see, okay, yeah, maybe they're not as sure a footing as we thought right now. But like when the outlook is rosy, and you're talking about like, oh, everything is great, and then you turn around and cut, you know, they had 22,000 people that work in the games division at Microsoft. 1,900 is a little under 10%. It's like 8% of your staff. It's a lot of fucking people.
A lot.
A lot of fucking people that you're cutting. And I know why they're doing it is because they're prognosticating. They're seeing, you know, what things are looking like on the horizon. They know that 2024, they're probably going to see a bit of a dip in revenue over 2023 because 2023 was an abnormal year. And they're kind of, you know, baking in and preparing for that. But it like I said, just, you know, they kind of took this, you know, what I think was a big PR victory for them in how this whole Activision Blizzard situation was handled. And, you know, a lot of people, and us included, talked about, oh, you know, good guy at Microsoft and people at Activision Blizzard will be better off, you know, at Microsoft than they were, you know, under Bobby Kotick. And that's still probably true, but that's only true for the people who are still working there in the wake of these layoffs happening. It's just it was just an amazing thing to see that. And again, like Microsoft had $70 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard, but apparently we don't have the operating costs available to be able to find something for, you know, these 1,900 or 1,900 people, or not, you know, maybe there were some redundancies and, you know, you would have gotten rid of a couple hundred people.
I'm sure there are, you know, I'm sure, you know, you could probably say that, you know, a couple hundred people in there are basically just as a result of a merger creating redundancies. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to keep the folks at Microsoft who have already been at Microsoft working on these sort of things before. But it's like, Brad, I think you were the one to say it, that like for most of these companies, making a lot of money isn't enough. They need to make all the money.
Every dollar that's available out there. So
every single available dollar. And that means that ultimately employees, people are expendable.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what department you're in. Doesn't matter how long you've been with the company. Doesn't matter what kind of work you've done. If at the end of the day, someone in some upper management, HR, has crunched the right kind of numbers, someone who has probably never met you or known the kind of work that you do or knows really anything about you beyond your social security number and maybe how long you've been with the company, is going to see you as not necessary anymore. So that's what it boils down to. And that's why, again, companies are not your friends, not as an employee and not as a consumer. And corporate loyalty is a fucking myth because your loyalty will not be rewarded.
Yep.
Not in a capitalist society, it fucking won't. I do find it interesting. You know, I think it might have been brought up in the Discord as far as like, well, who's going to be next, and people eyeing Japanese companies and whatnot. It's like, it's not going to happen at Nintendo or Square Enix because Japan actually has laws in place to prevent mass layoffs like this.
Yes, they do. That,
you know, people bring up Satoru Iwata, notoriously, very famously taking a massive pay cut. That's the kind of thing where it's like, maybe he would have done it anyway because Iwata seems like a real salt of the earth kind of guy. But that's also the kind of thing where it's like he had to do that because the laws mandated that he do that before anybody get laid off.
And by the way, you know who isn't sweating whether or not they have a job tomorrow or if they're going to be a part of these layoffs? The unionized QA workers that came to Microsoft and that were at Activision Blizzard. And do you know why? It's because union regulate, like according to the law, since they're unionized, the bargaining agreement they made with Microsoft says that, hey, if you're going to be laying off staff, you have to give us, you know, I think it's like 90 days or X amount of days notice before layoffs happened. So those unionized folks, they're just like, yeah, like I know I'm good because they haven't given us any notice. And again, like, would unionization save those people? No, but it makes it so that shit like this doesn't come like a fucking bolt out of the blue and just kind of and strike you out of nowhere. Yet another reason
unions
to progress,
are good.
Yeah, union efforts
Unions
in the gaming
are good.
industry.
Don't fucking believe what some people would have you believe otherwise. No, unions are very good for worker protections, basically.
And the other reason this is concerning too in the game industry is that, and I heard this discussed on another podcast, and I think it's a good bring up here, is that you're gonna, like, remember before, like, when the layoffs have been, they happen, but they're sporadic. What did we used to see? We used to see all these other studios on Twitter saying, like, hey, like, those of you at this studio that were laid off, like, hey, we're looking for good folks, check us out, or check out these studios, we know they're hiring. And you used to see that all the time. That used to be a part of
You're
these
not
game
seeing
layoffs.
that fucking
Not seeing it
at all.
Not seeing it right now.
Right now.
Which means that these people, by and large, many of whom I'm sure are incredibly talented games folks, a lot of these people are just they're gonna leave the games industry. And that's not good for the games industry as a whole. It's not good for the growth of the games industry. Now, some of them may, if they're in good enough position, may end up at independent studios or start their own studio and kind of do their own thing, and that would be great. But by and large, like, a lot of these folks are going to get, go work in IT somewhere, like go work as a programmer somewhere, like, doing programming, corporate software and stuff like that. And those people aren't going to come back to games. And that's, again, for an industry that, always wants to be growing, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to lose that kind of talent and to not get it back. So, just like I said, just a complete shit situation as usual, all the way around. I didn't mention it, but worth mentioning as well, because this is the kind of the least of the struggles. But as a result of this, that Blizzard survival game that they had teased a couple years ago that they were working on is now canceled. So we're not going to see that game now, which again is a shame, because say what you will about Blizzard games, but they have a way to kind of like amplify a lot of genres where they're not the first person to do it, but they do it in such a way that kind of makes it the most appealing to a wide audience. So look, I hope all the people that are affected by this land on their feet, and I really hope that we don't have to keep doing these fucking stories every single week, because man, does it suck for sure. Speaking of something that I will continue to rail against, even though you cannot stand in the face of the machine, Blizzard is the latest game studio that has gotten into bed with the Saudi government. Basically, they have decided to roll out a new competitive Overwatch esports circuit in lieu of the end of the Overwatch League. And as they're partnering with the ESL Facet Group, which is an esports company which is owned by Saudi Arabia's Savvy Games Group, which of course is a company owned by the Saudi government. What is it called? The private investment fund that they have, which is again the Saudi government's very obvious effort to whitewash the shitty practices of their government and their leader Mohammed bin Salman. So.
What else is new?
Keep your politics out of my video games, Carrie. It's Micah's line. Again, as we talked about before, no ethical consumption at all. The Saudis are doing as much as they can to get their tendrils in as many legitimate businesses, popular businesses as they possibly can, to improve their government's image in the eyes of Western folks. Doesn't mean you can't consume the content that they happen to be involved in, but it still is worth recognizing the fact that they continue to be one of the worst governments from a human rights standpoint on the planet, and do not deserve any praise for that from that standpoint. So there's that. We're going to take a quick break, and then Carrie will turn the mood around on the show and talk about her time at MAGfest, so stay tuned. All right, so Carrie, you were back in the DMV a couple weeks ago for MAGfest. I saw some pics. I saw the good times you were having, and tell us about MAGfest.
Sure. So if you're listening to this and you're unfamiliar, MAGfest is the music and gaming festival. It's been held every year for the last, I believe this is the 21st iteration of the main MAGfest event. Um, Held in the DC area for the last decade or so. It's been held at the Gaylord National at National Harbor. It rips. It's 4 straight days of exactly what it says on the package, right? Music and gaming. I actually really didn't do much in the way of gaming this year. I think I stuck my head in the arcade like once. I was so busy otherwise. But yeah, I had a great time. I performed with my partner Ian Cowell and the band of exceptional goblins in the jam space. We had an absolutely packed room for that. Thank you to anyone listening who showed up. I know there were, I think, a few folks who are regular listeners who were there. I know a couple of people introduced themselves to me. I'm fucking terrible with names, and I don't remember offhand. But I had a lot of people come up and say very nice things to me and shake my hand, which was great. Yeah, I got to do a lot over the course of the weekend. I got to perform some trombone in the opening ceremonies. Which was a lot of fun. And then I did, I participated in the Sonic R speed run, where it was called a karaoke percent run, where the game was modded to have the lyrics for the songs like on the screen as the runner was going. So um every song, of course, there's like, it's only like a 6-stage game, right? So like every song has vocals, but there's still at the end of the day only like 6 tracks with vocals. So everyone had like a different person sort of like leading the room on a track. So I led Diamond in the Sky, which was a lot of fun. One of the more underrated bangers on the Sonic R soundtrack. I feel like everybody remembers Can You Feel the Sunshine and Supersonic Racing. But the whole soundtrack rips. The big thing for me was during the Jam Space performance with Band of Goblins, we got to perform the song Xeno Arcadia from the game Hylix 2, with Chuck Salamone, who's the guy who wrote the game. He's the Hylix composer. That was a ton of fun. Chuck's a great guy. Mason Lindroth, who's the guy who created the Hylix games and is currently working on Hylix 3. Also just sort of hanging out all weekend, just a total homie. So it was really good to get to know those guys. I'm really looking forward to what they're working on with Hylix 3, as well as what Chuck's working on with the game Flipside and otherwise. Yeah, it was a really good weekend. MAGfest, as always, is just so good. If you haven't been to a MAG event, there are fortunately many MAG events that happen over the course of the year now. Super MAGfest happens every January, except for the one year where I think it was in February for some reason. But it's usually at the start of the year, and that's in the DC area. And then you also have MAG Stock, which is a camping event that takes place in like Darlington, Maryland now. It used to be in Virginia.
That's where my in-laws live, in Darlington.
Yeah. And
so.
yeah. And then you've got MAG West, which is in San Jose. So it's a ton of fun. If you haven't been to a MAG event, definitely get to one. Even if you're not huge into like video game music per se, there's like a 24-hour arcade, 24-hour console room, LAN tournaments, all sorts of shit. And they do tournaments on weird stuff there too. They do tournaments on like Pokemon Puzzle League is one that I remember them doing a big tournament on. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm really glad I went. I feel very creatively validated and energized. I had a lot of people be very complimentary of my playing and arranging and whatnot. So thank you if you're one of those people. And then the other thing, the downside was with 24,000 people there, a lot of people got sick. It's the one sort of downside to...
Wait, 24,000 people?
24,000
really?
people. Yes, they capped attendance and they sold out. Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Look, I started feeling kind of crummy on Friday, and I ended up taking a COVID test on Saturday. Because at first I was like, maybe it's just like the dry ass hotel air. It was very dry at the Gaylord this weekend. A lot of my friends who played woodwind instruments had completely busted lips by the end of the weekend because it was so dry in the building. A lot of folks who were doing vocals had completely shredded vocal cords by the end of the weekend. such as myself. It's like I got through the one song that I do vocals on, and that was it. I was done after that, man. But no, I ended up with a bit of a sinus infection, which sucks. But alas, a convention that big that no longer has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate, you're gonna get sick. These is just sort of the risk you take when you go to events these days. I mean, it was the risk you would take, obviously, pre-COVID. A lot of folks would. Con crud has always sort of been a thing, right? But look, I had a good time. The next sort of big gaming event that you'll be able to catch me at will be VGM Con in Minneapolis. So if you're in Flyover Nation, you want to get out to Minneapolis. VGM Con's a lot of fun too. Yeah, I'll be doing 2 sets at VGM Con, so more details on that to come. So
very cool. Micah was here and then he disappeared. I'm hoping he comes back because I am just tickled pink to talk about this story. So
oh yeah, this is hilarious.
Oh my god! So Suicide Squad is coming out this week. Believe it or not.
Yep.
I can't believe it, but it is.
I still don't believe it.
I mean it's hard to believe. So you know we talked about this game, how you know it's probably not gonna be very good. Like preview coverage has been terrible, so terrible in fact that they released people from a non-disclosure agreement that played in a closed beta because they wanted some positive user feedback to get out there to counterbalance the negative press feedback that the game had. Unprecedented, not a great sign. You know what else isn't a great sign, Carrie, is when you don't send not a single review code out to
Not
any
one.
outlet out there.
It's one thing to like have the review embargo be
Right.
day of release. That's usually a bad sign in its own right, but to not send any review codes at all, it's just like you guys don't have any faith in this product.
Yeah, they basically so typically, like Carrie said, they'll send review copies. If you don't know how it works, they send review copies to press outlets early, and there's
Usually
an embargo
2 to 3 weeks before
to give them a chance to play it, and then the review is embargoed until usually the day of release or the day before, or a couple days before, whatever the case may be.
I would say usually,
Yeah,
if they have faith in the product, the review embargo will be the week before release.
Correct.
So that people have the opportunity to
Yes.
read the reviews and get excited about it.
Yes.
If they're sort of wibbly on if the game's going to do well, then the embargo is probably going to be day of.
Yes.
If they have zero faith in the game whatsoever, they're just not going to fucking send any.
Yeah, you don't. That means you don't want to see press reviews in the first weekend that the game's available because you don't want it to affect your sales of the game potentially. But then we got another really entertaining story. So the game released into early access today, as we're recording this Monday, and players found out that when they booted up the game, they had, upon starting up, they had already received the trophy and in the game's standpoint had fully completed the story for the game, which basically unlocks certain game features and basically makes it so that like full spoilers are available to you. And so catastrophic was this bug that how this made it through quality control, I have no fucking clue.
What quality control?
Well, there you go. They literally pulled the game down from early access to fix this bug. Micah, how confident are you that we are about to embark on a Game of the Year candidate in Suicide Squad?
What's the video game equivalent of the Razzie?
Of the Razzie.
that is what this game will be awarded. Yeah, I just saw that story of the catastrophic bug. The one thing that Rocksteady is like, you're gonna love the story. You're gonna love the story. Trust us. You're gonna love the story. And then as soon as you boot it up, boop, there it is. Everything. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, again, like a company's never going to go out there and say, "Hey, we're just setting this game out to die." But I mean, this, for all intents and purposes, this is about as close as you're going to come to that happening.
Why did they delay this? Wasn't it supposed to come out last year? Sometime
Yeah.
last year?
Yeah, they
What was
delayed
the
it because there was a gameplay preview that was shown in trailers and stuff like that, and people's response to it was, "What the fuck is this?" and the sentiment was so
Actually,
negative.
it was originally supposed to come out in 2022.
Yeah.
And then they delayed it from that sort of like sometime in 2022 launch window to May 2023. And then they delayed it again to February 2nd.
Poor Will Arnett deserves better than to be in the fucking marketing for this fucking game. I'll tell you.
Does he?
Yeah, he does. I like Will Arnett. He's a funny guy.
He made his choice.
He got his money. I want to take a quick dip into the post office because it relates to the story. Mad Coco G asks, with the looming release of the Suicide Squad game, was Rocksteady set up to not necessarily fail, but have a ready reason for Warner Brothers Discovery to close their doors?
I try not to buy into conspiracy theories, because usually they are too fantastical. It's like, all right, come on, guys. Like, I don't believe that this is, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Seems plausible to me. This is a little ridiculous, man.
I feel like if you're going to do that, though, you could just close the studio 3 years ago and not waste additional development money.
Right. If
marketing.
they really wanted to fucking close the studio, they would have canceled the project. So I don't know that this is anybody necessarily being set up to fail. But it sure doesn't look good. It's been 9 years since Arkham Knight came out, which a lot of people thought was, right. But I think it's a shame to look at the studio that did the Arkham trilogy and to think, oh, well, these guys are next on the chopping block. That sort of sucks. I don't think anybody wants Rocksteady to fail, and I don't think they're being set up for failure. I just think they developed a shitty game.
I think they were mandated that this game has to have these elements, and if you don't have these elements, you can't make a game.
That wouldn't surprise me, but I don't necessarily consider that being set up to fail.
No, I don't think that's set up to fail. No, they did not. This company does not want. This publisher does not want them to fail.
Right.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
They want people to keep spending goo gobs of money, buying skins or whatever.
Yeah.
You do when you make these things.
It's just it's one of these things where it's like when this game entered development, live service games were the fucking new horizon, right? And then as it turns out, no one actually wants to play that bullshit. So I think the result of this, given the essentially 2.5, almost 3 years of delays, where it's no longer able to sort of capitalize on the zenith of the games industry anymore. People aren't playing live service games anymore. They were really not playing live service games even 2 or 3 years ago. So it's just they tried to capitalize on a trend and they just started the process a little too late. Now you have a game coming out that's full of garbage and has too much going on, and that ultimately isn't going to be very good. It looks like
this is an inexcusable self-inflicted wound in a post-Anthem world.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it really, right? Everybody should have looked at Anthem and been like,
Anthem came out 5 years ago?
Jesus Christ. Was it that long ago?
I think so.
2019. Yep.
Oh, it was 2019. Okay, 4 years. No, 5 years ago. Fuck, it is 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah, February 2019. Almost exactly 5 years ago.
How time stops for.
In
no
the
man.
wise words of Smash Mouth, man, the years start coming and they don't stop coming.
Oh my goodness.
Damn, it's almost 5 years to the day.
I know. It's nuts. Look, man, if you're a gamer, capital G, and you were thinking about getting this game, I implore you to wait for reviews to come out, because if they're not giving it the press, it's because they know it's gonna be a fucking turd. And don't waste your money, because $70 is a lot of money to waste on a game that is gonna suck ass and not be very
That shit's
fun.
gonna be $25 in 3 months.
Yep.
If you're that morbidly curious about it. Plenty of other shit coming out to play. Plenty of shit coming out this week to play.
Yeah.
Fucking Persona 3 Reload comes out this week.
There's another
Look,
Go ahead.
let me put it to you this way, okay? I'm not getting this game.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, that should be all you need to know.
Right, even Micah can't be tempted in by the siren song of a DC property game, because this looks like shit. When we get to the post office later, there's another WB adjacent question. It's very interesting because WB as a publisher might be in a bit of. I mean, there's a reason they were trying to sell last year, right? It's because they might be in a bit of a dire strait, but we'll see. It's a good time for another break. We'll take another quick one, and then we'll be right back with impressions of a game that I've been playing. So one of my backlog games that I wanted to get to, that I've actually been having a lot of fun with, is a $5 game called Brotato that came out a little while ago. This is another auto battler in the same vein as a Vampire Survivors, but this one's a little bit different because it's wave based. So like the action takes place on a very small map, and you have to survive like minute-long waves essentially, and then between waves you can buy new weapons and upgrades and things like that for your character. I love this game. I'm having a really good time with it because it is a fantastic way. If you're like an ARPG person or just a gamer that likes to play RPGs that like have a lot of build craft in them and things like that, this is a great way to get your fix for that sort of thing in like 30-minute increments, because that, like, if you can survive a full run in Brotato, that's about how long it takes. It's about half an hour to complete a single run. I am someone that loves build crafting, that loves trying to create and make broken builds that just do shitloads of damage and stuff like that. And Brotato has this in spades, because first of all, when you embark on a run, you get to pick from one of the several archetypes of potato characters that you've unlocked throughout the game that all come with different base stats, and they have stats that you really want to spec into and stats that you want to avoid. But then after each wave, you have a marketplace where you can spend currency that you earn in the game to buy different weapons and different items and stuff like that. And those were going to be the basis of your builds. And so, like, when you have a build where you just have like a potato that has like 5 submachine guns that's just like fucking spraying in bullets around you and just annihilating all the enemies that you're facing, that's really fun. Like it's fun to spec into that. It's fun for the same reason that Vampire Survivors is. Vampire Survivors to me is still kind of the best one of these in my estimation. But Brotato has climbed the ranks to be like a solid number 2 for me in terms of this like auto battler genre. And again, the best thing about it, it's $5. So like if you're just like, hey, I want to take a fucking punt on this and check it out, even if you don't like it, who gives a shit? You're out a cup of coffee. Big whoop. But if you like it, that $5 will take you a really long way. So I would definitely recommend checking out Brotato if you have PC. It's a great Steam Deck game as well. So good for that. So give it a look-see and let us know what you think in the Discord if you do check it out to play it. Sony is being a bad guy in a situation. So I think 2 years ago, a solo developer made a demake of Bloodborne. So basically this developer, her name is Lilith Walther, made basically what if Bloodborne was a PS1 game. Okay. And she released that independently, and it got pretty good reviews. They're like, man, like this really captures the spirit. Like it looks very PS1-ish. And you can see that. So one of the and this game came out like Sony knew it was releasing, came out in 2022, no harm, no foul, no big deal. So she decided to kind of like make a natural progression. And during the 32-bit era and 64-bit era, if you had a successful game franchise, inevitably that game franchise would receive a kart racer. And that's what you did. That's just the way things worked back in that day. And so the next game that Lilith Walther was working on is Bloodborne Kart, which is basically what if Mario Kart or what if Crash Nitro Kart, but Bloodborne characters. And this was like a full fucking thing. Like she had 12 different racers in the game, 16 different maps, made a campaign, and this was supposed to come out on January 31st, this coming Wednesday. And at the 11th hour, and really at 11:45, you could even say.
Yeah.
Sony contacted her and basically told her she needs to rebrand the game and that she can't use the Bloodborne aesthetic to do this. Now, she's taking it in stride. She said, I kind of expected this to happen at some point. I was shocked that it didn't. And it's cool that, that she's like, yeah, like I can easily retheme this and still keep all the same shit. I just have a problem with them, like not having a problem with with the
demake in the first place. Yeah, it really begs the question, like where is the line with them, especially since this is explicitly a parody. And I don't think anyone would have it confused with like an official release. Now, at the end of the day, there are other ways that I think Sony could have gone about this, just as far as like having her fucking pay a fee to use the Bloodborne name or something like that. Like there are ways to do this that would have basically allowed Sony to, get theirs, so to speak. But it's just, the article makes a good point where it's like the Bloodborne demake and Bloodborne Kart like memes and whatnot were generating a lot of positive publicity for the Bloodborne brand, with Sony spending $0 fucking dollars of their own money to do that. So, you would have kind of hoped that, maybe some sort of deal could have been reached here.
Or just fucking be like, yeah, go for it. Like, who gives a shit? Like
I mean, I understand.
Like, does Sony have a Bloodborne kart racing game in their back pocket that we don't know about?
It's actually really funny. Of course, Sony is hosting a State of Play this Wednesday, and the developer said, "This is your chance to announce the absolute funniest thing." If they reveal that they've had a Bloodborne kart in their pocket the whole time, right? But yeah, it's just it really doesn't make sense. Now, I understand in terms of setting legal precedents in terms of your trademarks and copyrights and all that shit, that there are certain things that sort of have to be done. But it's like, there are other ways that this, so-called issue could have been resolved on Sony's end. So it's a little disappointing to see them sort of take this action, especially fucking 3 days before it was supposed to release. Like, man, you guys didn't know. It's not like you guys didn't know that this was happening. Why did you wait? So.
I'm looking at clips of this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's really funny. It's really funny.
And what's fucking tragic is that I guarantee you, the reason this happened is not because of some edict from like Miyazaki that was like, oh, you need to fucking get this game. This is bullshit or anything like that. No. Some fucking lawyer in some fucking office, some corporate lawyer probably just fucking happened to see this shit and was like, oh, this would be an easy fucking pound of flesh to get from somebody, and probably did it just because they had nothing fucking better to do. Like, you're not protecting your IP. This is obviously made by someone who's a fan of your game, so much so that they made a fucking demake of it, a couple of years ago, and it just comes off bad. Like we're talking about it on the podcast in a negative light. Whereas if you would let this come out and we talk about it on the show, we've been like, man, how cool is Sony that they just kind of fucking let this thing rock. Like, that's dope as shit. You don't have to be like this. This like save this shit for Nintendo. Nintendo's sharpening their blades as Power World crosses 8 million sales. Pokemon company's like, yeah, we're looking. We're gonna look to see if this if there's any legal action we should be taking here.
I think just to touch on that real quick, I think when they're saying like we're investigating, it's mostly like we're making sure none of our assets were stolen and reused for this. That's really what it boils down to. And I think they'd be completely in the right to file an injunction if indeed there was, stuff ripped out of Pokemon titles and reskinned and repurposed for that game. That I don't think they're looking to get the game taken down. I think they're just like, people are saying that some of our assets might be in this game, and we didn't sell those to anybody. Pal World fucking cracks me up. It seems like a lot of people are buying it because the game is sort of the hot new thing right now, and then playing it for 5 minutes and being like, oh, you know what, not for me.
Yeah, like it's fine. It's fine. I do wonder how many people bought that game that thought it was going to be like a Pokemon experience. And
I'm sure a lot of people, because it's being framed up as Pokemon with guns, and that's not really what it is,
right? Final news story, as I coined it in the docket, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids. We talked about the day before the fucking asset flip scam that came out and was so terrible that it shut down 4 days after release after a huge hype cycle. And was such a fucking piece of shit that Steam literally went outside of their refund policy and refunded gamers proactively who bought this game. That's how bad it was. So you might think that if you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar red-handed making an asset flip piece of crap on Unreal Engine 5, you might take the L and move on. But that is not how that's going to go for Fantastic, who is the developer behind the day before, saying that the game failed because of a hate campaign that was orchestrated by certain bloggers. They decided to come out with a 10-paragraph, I'll call it a manifesto, seems like a good word, to debunk the claims as to why this game actually was awesome, and it's actually a big fucking shame that nobody can buy it anymore.
As a gentle reminder, as someone who has a lot of experience working in the media as well as a lot of experience working in public relations and marketing, just a friendly reminder to anyone listening to this: shutting the fuck up is free.
Yeah, fuck off, yo. Like, for real, like, just fuck right off. All right? Like, you damn near swindled people, and it just isn't. Yo, all right, yo. All right. You got to blame somebody. Just take the L, yo. Just take the L.
Exactly.
Jesus
exactly.
fucking Christ.
Take the L, shut the fuck up, and go away. And stop running your mouth, because you're not saving yourself, and you're not endearing your thing to anyone.
I will I'd like to read some of the quotes from this. Again, this is the company who was like, like, if you work for us, like, you're actually kind of like volunteering, right? Like we love volunteers. Like, this is awesome. Quote, we implemented everything shown in the trailers, from home improvements in a detailed world to off-road vehicles. We only disabled a few minor features like parkour due to bugs, but plan to include them in the full release. There's negative bias instilled by certain bloggers making money on hate, and that affected perceptions of the game. By the way, after sales closed, many people wrote to us that the bloggers had deceived them, and they liked the game and asked for access. We also heard that petitions were created to continue development, and on the black market, the game's price exceeded $200, and some people even began making their own mods.
More volunteer work. Then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, very true.
Jesus Christ.
I can't wait to see what terrible fucking asset flip this studio comes out with next. It's going to be a sight to behold, I'm sure. But yeah, it's also funny too because like in in many respects, Pal World is almost like the inverse of the same coin that the day before kind of sits on.
Right.
And Pal World happened to be a massive success due to being a perfectly competent game that came out. But still, like insanely, like it's funny. The more I hear people talk about Power World, they're like, like the Pokemon thing. Like, yeah, it's pretty obvious that they're cribbing, but like they might be just genuinely stealing certain things from Breath of the Wild. Like, apparently there's like a lot of like even just like the font that they use to announce new areas and like the little musical cues you get for discovering new regions are apparently like people are, like it's one of those things where it's like I don't know if this is the exact sound cue from Breath of the Wild, but I feel like it's
exactly. It's
Oh my gosh. So what a fucking place this industry is right now.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, if you just, all right, man. I just don't like the excuses, especially when you're kind of really like in the wrong. Like, you're not a baby face like story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't come off like that, and this doesn't help. Just go away at this point.
Yeah, just disappear into obscurity where you ought to be. So.
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to put in one last break here for you guys, and then we will head over to the Dense Pixels post office. All right, so don't forget that you can submit questions to the show in the post office by joining our Discord at densepixels.com/fans, just like Mark did, who asks, what car brand has drivers that you can mostly correctly assume, man, that person drives like a dick? And why is it
Tesla.
cheap?
It's Tesla. At least in California, it's fucking Tesla, man. Every dumb fuck driving a Tesla out here in the Bay Area doesn't know how to fucking drive. Back in Maryland, I would say it would have been BMWs.
Interesting. So it's not Jeep for me, but the same manufacturer.
I resemble that remark.
Do you have a BMW?
I have a Jeep. I have a Jeep.
Oh, you have a Jeep.
I don't have a BMW.
I was about to say, I was like, when did you
the fucking money that this company makes? What the fuck?
Jay doesn't have a BMW anymore, to be fair. Now he has a Saab, so.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
It's safer. Saabs are incredibly safe. So.
And he had a couple of Teslas.
I remember he had fucking Teslas too.
He had a his and hers Tesla before he finally realized that wannabe Iron Man is actually fucking Doctor Doom, and he's fucking evil.
My company is again not Jeep, but same manufacturer, and that'd be Dodge. Everyone that drives a Dodge, I'm pretty sure, is an asshole. What was, also too, like, this got me thinking, what was the most car of your youth that did not hold up in any way, shape, or form? Mine and Micah, this is gonna hurt you, so I apologize in advance. For me, it was a tie between the Toyota Celica and the Mitsubishi Eclipse.
Oh man, yeah, I loved my little Eclipse, man. It was like my little Batmobile that I didn't have any legroom in. But by the time I was used to it, didn't have a back seat. It had a back seat, but it didn't have a back seat. And I remember we went to the DC Auto Show because I wanted to take my son, and my other son and my wife were like, let's go, let's all go. I'm like, all right, fine. And I was telling the story to my wife. My dad, I remember one of the first car shows I went to, my father, he had this dream of wanting to drive a car off of the showroom floor at a car show, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody, look at me, right? And it was the first year that the Chrysler Cirrus came out. You probably don't even remember that car. Because it was a piece of shit.
Since it was a Chrysler, I assume it was like a boat. Basically.
Yeah, it was. It looked like
wait.
Big
you mean Chrysler Sebring?
No, not a Sebring.
Oh, okay.
See, exactly, exactly. Like that's like the brand. The brand was tarnished. I'm gonna see if I can find it, but it was a piece of garbage, man. And it was like lime green. The shit was falling apart, but it was the worst purchase he's ever bought.
Carrie, what was the hot
And
car in high school?
I don't fucking
No?
know. Look, my first car is a PT Cruiser, and I still swear by that, having been a good car. So I'm probably not the person to talk to, because I think in
the
my heart of
sporty
hearts,
hearse.
yeah, look, I like my little sporty hearse. Here's the thing about the PT Cruiser is that the PT Cruiser was and is one of the best gig cars if you're a musician, because it's not that big. I think that it's actually classified as a small truck rather than as a sedan. Has a terrible fucking turning radius, but it's a hatchback. It's got incredible trunk space and the seats fold down. So when I was gigging in college, I could fit all my gear in there, no fucking problem. And that was fucking great. I drove that thing until literally I was on my way home from working a shift with you, Brad,
Oh, yeah.
at Towson Town Center, and I was taking the back roads back to Reisterstown, and I made the right turn onto Falls Road, and the engine went whoa, and I was like, "That's not good." And the timing belt had snapped at that light the near the private rich boy school there. Yep. I miss that car all the time. That was the best car I've ever had. Had decent gas mileage. It ugly as shit, 100%. But would I own another one? Yeah. If they put out a new PT Cruiser, and if they put that fucking purple piece of shit with the wood panel on the side, that's the one I would go for. It's not the one I had. I had a silver one. But yeah.
Micah sent us a picture of the Chrysler
Yeah, that's
Searing.
awful. That's
Yeah,
pretty fucking bad.
Right. That's the car that he wanted to show off in. Like
That's
that's
really
just
funny.
ugly shit. Man.
It looks like a Sebring without the personality, which is saying a
That's
lot,
true, yeah.
considering a Chrysler Sebring doesn't have much personality to
No.
begin with. So, two-part question from Cam: is Cody officially finishing his story at WrestleMania? And who impressed you more in the Rumble, Jordan Grace, Jade Cargill, or CM Punk's ability to somehow tear his triceps again, like he's Kevin Nash with a torn quad?
What?
Oh, you didn't hear the news?
What?
Apparently, Phil Brooks tore his tricep in the Rumble match and is probably going to miss like 9 months.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. Okay. Wow. I mean, I don't mean to laugh at the man's pain, but like, god damn. Like fragile ego, fragile body, fragile mind. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, they have to. They have to have Cody
Yeah.
finish the story and get the win. And it's like some of the easiest booking you can do, right? Like I had this I was fantasy booking it, and it's like, all right, it's a Roman match, right? So it's gonna have its ebbs and its flows, and then towards the crescendo, you're gonna see Solo come out, and then you're gonna see Jimmy come out, and you're gonna hear Michael Cole screaming, not again, you son of a bitch, not again," right? And then all of a sudden you see Jay come out and try to, even the odds, right? But they're still outmanned, right? And then all of a sudden you hear, "If you're smart,"
Yeah.
right? And then The Rock comes out, and then it's those three guys versus the Bloodline, right? And The Rock and Jay keep Jimmy and Solo kind of occupied. Roman is distracted. Cody spins him around, right? Because you can't win off of a distraction, right? You can't have Cody win off of a distraction. He spins him around, he gets him back in the match, he hits him with the dusty routine with the punches and then the bionic elbow and then the cross. Basically what he did at the Royal Rumble, right? And then he pins him. When he finishes the story, you set up for the absolute final time ever. The Bloodline feud is going to be over. It's going to blow up. The Bloodline is going to blow up. Roman's not the champ. It's Roman versus The Rock at SummerSlam. That match could actually like mean something now because like The Rock's not gonna. We all know The Rock's not gonna win a championship, and it's not for a championship. You get Jimmy versus Jay, right? Something that I think they've been wanting to do for a while. They just really fucked it up in the beginning, but you can kind of salvage it if you drag it out to WrestleMania. Um, and yeah, and you can find something for Solo to do.
I mean, you could technically have him like if Roman loses to The Rock, which I would assume that he would. You could have Solo kind of usurp Roman and be like, "You're not the strongest anymore," and have him and basically be the reason that Roman gets to disappear for 6 months, essentially. Because after he's done doing his stuff for a while, we're not going to see him for a little bit.
So it's the easiest booking in the world. I did like what I was impressed with Jordan Grace just because I don't know who the hell Jordan Grace is because I don't know where to watch TNA. Jade Cargill, I think they did a very good job. They booked her exactly the way they should have.
Yes.
With Nia being the the person nobody could get over, and then as soon as I saw Jade come out, I was like, oh, there you go. She's gonna be the solo person to pick her ass up and toss her over, and that's what they did. And that's it's simple, it's predictable, but sometimes those are the best told stories, right? Like tell a story well.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. They've been doing this for years. So,
right.
I mean, just Rumble thoughts overall. I thought the women's Rumble was good. I thought the 2 title matches were fine. I actually really liked how the Kevin Owens Logan Paul match ended. I thought that was a very smart ending. And then the men's Rumble was fine. Not great, but I mean, R-Truth. Put that man in the Hall of Fame already, for Christ's sake. He deserves it.
Man. Like that guy, I've come
full circle.
I've come full with R-Truth, man. I was like, this guy's a fucking idiot, yo. And I was like, this guy's a fucking he just I don't want to speak ill of black people in front of white people, but I was pissed about him, man. And then I love the guy, man. I love the guy.
Yeah,
Carrie, he don't age. He's like 50.
Carrie, R-Truth's whole gimmick is that he just kind of does nonsensical things. So the first hilarious part is he, as one of the women is entering, R-Truth's music plays and he runs down to the ring during the women's Royal Rumble because he was confused about which Royal Rumble he was supposed to enter in. So that was a fun little gimmick. And then when he came out for the men's Rumble, he jumped. So many years ago when he came out for a Royal Rumble, he brought a ladder to the ring with him because he thought it was a ladder match. So that was fun. And then this time he stood on the apron like it was a tag team match, reaching for a tag from one of his teammates in the Judgment Day, and he actually got a hot tag to come into the Royal Rumble match, and then proceeded. And the thing that no one talked about that I thought was brilliant, I love that it was Gunther that he was doing. He was doing all this to literally the most serious guy on the fucking roster, and he's getting teed up with the fucking 5 moves of doom by R-Truth, paying homage to his childhood hero John Cena. So
it's fucking hysterical.
Film Wander says, ever since Mortal Kombat 1 came out, the hype seemingly died down quickly, months after September 15 launch. By the way, if you'd held a gun to my head and told me to give you the Mortal Kombat 1 release date last year, there's no way in hell I would have guessed September, but I digress. Maximilian on his Twitch channel talked about saying a lot of what was done with prior NRS games and DLC micro and transaction people with the wiffle bat, finally this was the last straw. While I like the game a lot, I even like Mortal Kombat 11, I don't give a fuck. I'm not even playing it as much because it's very reliant on invasion mode. Has NetherRealm finally hit a point where they need to regroup and not be so heavy into forcing gamers to do so much grinding because it detracts from the actual entertainment product of the game?
I want to say this as someone who has not played much in the way of fighting games. But what I will say is that Mortal Kombat 1 didn't look fun to me. Like, Street Fighter looks fun to me. Mm-hmm. Other recent fighting games like Tekken 8 looks fun.
Tekken 8 is okay.
It's one of these things where it's like, as someone who has only ever played fighters in the most casual of settings, Mortal Kombat 1 just didn't look fun. And so I think, maybe NetherRealms needs to assess what their core gameplay loop is, and if they're relying a lot on grinding um certain matches and, trying to get stats up in that sort of way. It's just like, is that fun? You know, are people going to want to come back to this? Is there anything hooking people on that sort of gameplay cycle or not? Because if not, then yeah, they're gonna have to regroup, because ultimately it doesn't really matter what kind of game it is. If your game's not fun, people aren't gonna keep fucking playing it.
Micah, what are your thoughts?
So
Because you play these.
yeah, so Mortal Kombat has always been like the best selling because it appeals to the most casual fan base, which is fine. Like every fighting game wants to do that, but Mortal Kombat has always been lacking in systems. When you compare, people are like, oh, but remember back in the day when people were like, oh, we should do a Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter? How? One of them has three different types of punch buttons, three different types of kick buttons, and like a litany of mechanics that you can go through. And the other is high punch, high punch, high punch, high punch, low punch, uppercut, sweep. Like they're just not, they're too incompatible. I don't know how you would translate Street Fighter to that, right?
Micah,
Yeah.
And
I know you say, like, how can this happen? But I had it on good authority from customers that at GameStop that game was in development and was releasing releasing anytime.
and it's gonna be hard, yo.
Right?
Um, so Mortal Kombat has always been like just like something you kind of fuck around with, in my opinion. Like I know there are people who take Mortal Kombat incredibly seriously, but like the big thing in fighting games now is like player expression. People don't want to be able to. People want to have the ability to play certain characters in certain ways, and there are archetypes, right? Like Guiles or Shotos or stuff like that, right? Where that you can play differently that way, but like you also want to be able to play differently within those archetypes. And Mortal Kombat, I don't think their answer to that, they knew this, and their answer to that is the cameo system.
Mhm.
The problem with the cameo system is it's not like an assist system like you would see in something like Marvel vs. Capcom or Dragon Ball Fighters, where it's you call in someone while you're like with Mortal Kombat, you call in someone, but sometimes your character just kind of stands there in a b-boy stance while the other, while the cameo does something, and then you can come. It's weird, man. It's weird. It's the timing is weird. It always has been, especially since 11. Like the timing is weird. The and it succumbs to the whole like everybody wants to see the fatalities, but like once you see them,
You've seen them.
then what?
Yeah.
Right, you've seen them, and all this extra stuff that they have, like invasions mode and all that. It's just like it's gimmicks, which are fine, right? Tekken's got some gimmicks, but they're just not fun. And like Carrie said, it's just not. I'm not gonna say the game's not fun to play, but there's something about it that's not keeping people. It's not hooking people.
Yeah. You know what I
Even
think?
with like the character rollout, like they're not like one. This first battle season pass isn't like the heaviest of heavy hitters.
Mhm.
And two, they're taking a very long time rolling them out, and they're being weirdly quiet about like any type of development. They're being oddly quiet about it. So
I think what's ironic with Mortal Kombat is that its biggest strength, I think, feeds into making it a weaker game, because like everyone talks about how Mortal Kombat's amazing because it's got the best story mode in fighting games, but I think that so much focus and so much energy is poured into that mode that I think the actual gameplay and the moment to moment fighting suffers as a result. I think that they're too unfocused on the actual making the gameplay fun and keeping people's attention past those story modes. So
They need to rip off Tekken. They need to rip off Tekken. Tekken was a rip off of Virtua Fighter, but like they need to rip off Tekken in terms of at least their timing. They don't have to make a 3D game, right? But at least their timing.
Yeah.
This whole like dial a combo as fast as you can shit is not like you dial a string as fast as you can, and then and then the timing comes into play, because if you want to connect that string to something else, then you have to kind of estimate like, okay, when do I need to hurry up and dial the combo again? It doesn't flow naturally, at least to me, but I'm sure people who have been playing it forever are used to it, but I don't know, man. I've been playing Tekken for the past 26 hours total. I put 26 hours into Tekken already, and it's really fun, man. It's really fun. Like the one thing about Tekken that I don't like is the character customization. It's just kind of lacking, and that doesn't matter. Like, because I can still box people up with Steve, and it's fun to play. It's fun to play, and it looks incredible. Jesus Christ, the Times Square stage alone looks fucking amazing.
I'm gonna give you next week, because we're running long this week, but I'm gonna give you like a full fucking half an hour next week to talk about Tekken and or Yakuza.
Yeah. I haven't even touched Yakuza yet. I'm getting ready.
Shit.
I just fell into Tekken. I wanted to get that platinum before all the hardcore Tekken players are really like kicking my ass. So I'm gonna start Yakuza tomorrow.
Gotcha.
Did you play The Man Who Erased His Name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I watched my partner play through that like last week.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not a fan of playing the Yakuza games, but I am a fan of watching them because they're fucking ridiculous.
They are, man. They've mastered this weird, like, super serious crime drama with like goofy shit. With like,
it's like the game starts, he's at a fucking like temple, and then there's an attempted kidnapping at a dock, and then I watched him just like whoop ass in some underground fighting arena for like 7 hours, and then the game was over and everybody was crying, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. But
it's not even the most ridiculous one of like these RPGs are fucking wild, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's like they have everything that RPGs have, right? They have summons and shit, but it's also set in this realistic world. It's not set in a fantasy world. So if you want to summon, you got to break out your cell phone, call the local summoning agency to be like, hey, I'm gonna phone a friend, bam, and then all of a sudden somebody comes out with fucking giant boulders on his arms and shit and just beats the shit out of somebody for you. It's fucking wild.
I haven't seen much of Infinite Wealth yet, but I did see one clip where it's like dude's just walking down the street and some guy starts shit with him, and like the battle transition screen, and it just comes up with asshole as the guy you're fighting.
I love these games.
I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Look, up until they moved to turn-based combat, which basically feels very much like a very purposeful send-up of Dragon Quest.
They referenced that in the game.
Yeah, the game's always felt to me like the contemporary version of River City Ransom.
And you know what's funny? Like the main character, Ichiban, the reason that the game is turn-based is because he's a giant dork. And they're having these fights, like traditional Yakuza fights, but in his mind, because he's such a fucking dork, they're playing out like an RPG.
Yeah.
And that's how they justify the turn-based mechanics. It's fucking great, man. It's super fun.
Yeah, I've seen enough from Infinite Wealth to I was like, I'm just gonna skip 7 and just go fucking straight to Infinite Wealth. I'll read a recap of the story so I understand some of the context, but Infinite Wealth seems legit. So
Yeah.
Mark said or asked to add to the actually this is more of a statement, not a question. To add to the dormant game genre discussion from last week, I'd also like to add snowboarding and jet ski racing games like Where the Splashdowns and original cartoony SSX. EA has a lot to answer for when it comes to the EA big brand because they also did a number of the games that you mentioned last week. Yeah, of course, EA is the prime fucking offender when it comes to taking away great things. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I would love contemporary SSX. I thought when they tried to revive it a few years ago, which is like 10 years ago now, I thought the most recent SSX was a ton of fun. I played the shit out of that game. Obviously, nothing compares to Tricky, which is still the best of the SSX titles.
Yeah, but again, even though that game probably did fine, it didn't do like 2 million sold, and that's what
right, exactly. It didn't do fucking eye-popping numbers. Yeah, dude, I think of a lot of the games that I really liked playing when I was young, and it's like fucking Jet Moto and Wave Race 64. Oh, Wave Race 64 also has one of the best N64 soundtracks ever written. Look, where are these games? I would like to play these games. I will give you money.
We need
middle-class adult.
We need
California.
indie devs. Indie devs have to be the one to pick up the torch for the arcade sports genre. Please do. Finally, Evan asked thoughts on AlphaTauri's name change to Visa Cash App RB Formula One team. So Red Bull.
I wouldn't say it rolls off the tongue.
No, it certainly doesn't. So Red Bull. For those who aren't aware, the Red Bull Racing team actually fields 2 teams in Formula One. They have Red Bull, which is the main team, and then they have a team that's gone by many names over the years, but that's basically their kind of like junior team to get their younger drivers some Formula One experience, and that have always raced on the grid. Originally, they were known as Toro Rosso, which is the best name for this sub team. Literally means Red Bull in Italian. Makes sense, and the team's based in Italy. A couple years ago, they switched to AlphaTauri because I don't know if you guys know this. Red Bull has a fashion brand of clothing called AlphaTauri, and that's why they fixed that. That's why they switched the F1 team name to AlphaTauri. I guess they're pivoting away from the AlphaTauri fashion line. Because now, of course, we have, as Carrie mentioned, the just kind of sits on the tip of your tongue, Visa Cash App RB Formula One team, which is the most corporate drivel I've ever heard in my entire life. Now, fortunately, they will be colloquially known just as RB, also terrible for a racing team, and yet somehow not the worst racing team name on the grid because thanks to Alfa Romeo leaving, not being the chief sponsor of the Sauber team anymore, we now have Kick Sauber on the Formula One grid, being sponsored by streaming service Kick, except also they will be sponsored by Stake, which is a gambling company, for half the races this year. So half the races they're going to be Kick Sauber, and then half the races they're going to be Stake Sauber, both of whom are absolutely fucking terrible, and I hate them both. Yeah, absolutely.
I hate corporations, man. Like, it's such a necessary evil, but like I get it, but like, god damn, like can't you just have like AlphaTauri presented by Visa Cash App or whatever, right? Like, it just like I don't want to go to the Smoothie King Center to watch a basketball game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go to. We had to go to the CFG Arena.
Oh yeah, CFG Bank Arena.
The fuck? What the fuck
which
is
previously,
CFG Bank?
I don't fucking know. That's where I saw Kiss a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Now, it's stupid as shit. It's just in my mind that's always going to be the Baltimore Arena. It doesn't matter what name
sponsorship
is on the
they
side.
have on it.
Yeah. It was First Mariner for a long time,
and then Royal
it was
Farms.
Royal Farms.
Royal Farms
Yeah,
Arena.
Rofo Arena. I actually didn't mind
What
Rofo
the
Arena.
fuck?
I miss Rofo all the time out here. They don't have Royal Farms in California.
This is why,
Jesus
if you have a
Christ.
sports team that plays in a building that does not have a corporate sponsorship, cherish that shit for as long as you possibly can. Because
Hope
they
that
are
they don't get good.
they're regardless. Actually, it's more likely if they're bad, because then they just need money.
Right.
They need money to come in to get that. I am lucky enough to support two teams that have cool stadium names that aren't beholden by corporate nonsense. Of course, the Orioles play at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, easily the best baseball stadium name in the fucking country. And then Tottenham Hotspur plays at the very, very uniquely named Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Oh,
that one,
the Nationals, the Nationals play
Park,
at Nationals Park, which I know they tried selling the naming rights to that a couple years ago, and that didn't go anywhere. And they're trying to sell the team, and that's not going anywhere either. This team fucking sucks. The new uniforms are dog shit too, man.
well, again,
Terrible.
Tottenham Hotspur Stadium sounds like such a placeholder that I'm just waiting for to see who the corporate sponsor is going to be on that building at some point. But yeah, we don't have nearly enough cool stadium names anymore. Only the very legendary buildings are so graced with Wrigley Field is never going to have a corporate sponsor. Fenway Park's never going to have a corporate sponsor. Madison Square Garden.
Of course, technically speaking, Wrigley is a corporate sponsor.
That's true. That's true.
It's just been that way for 100 years.
Right. Well, it's not like that was the name of the owner. Like the name of the owner owned the Wrigley's corporation, right? Of the Cubs. I'm pretty sure the Wrigley family owned the team back when they created Wrigley Field.
It first opened in 1914 as Weekman Park.
Oh. For
the Chicago Whales of the much maligned Federal League. And then, chewing gum magnate William Wrigley acquired the Cubs in 1921. It was named Cubs Park through 26 before being renamed Wrigley Field in 1927.
Well, there you go. Wrigley did such an amazing job. They inceptioned corporate sponsorship onto the onto the name of the stadium and tricked us all.
Here's the thing. I would have to do some research, and by do some research I mean call my dad, because I'm sure he knows.
Oh, what an odd tangent that sent us off on. Fucking naming of corporate teams. So, but hey, that's why you come to the show. I know it is. That's going to be it for us. Again, look forward. Next week, Micah will have much to say about Tekken 8 and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I cannot wait to hear him talk about those two games, especially Tekken. I tell you, Micah, looking at people on the internet, watching people play Tekken, hearing people talk about Tekken, the FOMO's starting to get to me, man.
You should do it.
I probably
if you were going to play any of these games, look, Street Fighter and Tekken are the only games that I will buy every piece of thing for. I absolutely love it. I'm having a really good time. So
they brought Tekken Ball back. They have a fun story mode from what I understand. So
yeah. It's nonsense, right? It's silly nonsense.
What else would you expect?
Yeah. Nothing. That's what I want. Silly nonsense.
That's what I'm saying. It's why you came.
Yeah. Let's see them try to make a hero out of the guy that started World War III because he doesn't want cool devil powers because he's mad at his dad. All right, yo. All right. Shut up, Jen.
Oh, Carrie, anything to plug before we go away?
I got a Persona EP coming out in a couple weeks. Pre-orders go up on Friday. I'll post the link in the Discord. That's about it, man. I'm at home playing Golden Sun on Switch. Fuck else did you expect?
Very good. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.